Um, all right, so let's get started. So the three of you all have different experiences in competition. Craig Stampfli is in Australia. Um, full-time photographer, different genres, getting into competition. Craig was not part of our live webinar because that was a very challenging webinar for me to put on. But Craig is a friend, we've been chatting a lot about image competition lately, and he's entered a bunch of images in local competitions. And I thought, let's talk to him because he's knee deep in it. He's got some challenges as a new competitor, if you will. And we're going to talk about some of those images. Now, just for those watching, this is a very candid conversation. We're all friends. So if you see us picking on each other, that's totally fine. So Michael Rhino, as a president of PPC Colorado, am I correct? Right?
Right.
Yep.
Right. Yep.
And his local camera club, the Lone Tree Camera Club in Colorado. So he has a lot of experience there, and he's also pursuing his master's and entering competition. Peter Levshin and myself, we see each other on a weekly basis because we're pretty close. Peter has earned his master's, his PPA master's, as have I. And so we both have very lively discussions about where we think competition is going. And for those that are interested in getting into competition, I think it's a little more than just, I'm going to enter my beautiful images that all my friends tell me is great, and I should score well. So we're going to dive into that. So this is kind of that deep dive discussion about those things. We're going to talk about the 12 elements and stuff. So let's get started. Craig, what I would really like to hear from you is briefly, what has been your experience? What has been your greatest experience? Like, what have you really enjoyed taking away? And also, what's your biggest frustration? Because I think the frustration is probably what we need to spend some time on. So
no problem. I'll start with the frustration is probably understanding the image treatments or how they're supposed to be finished off with regards to borders and key lines, and the expectation that judges seem to put on that. And then for me, trying to make it work. What I like to see in a simple border for an online image seems to be the opposite of what judges want to see in a print competition. So it's me sort of fighting my inner demons to give the judges what they want, but also keeping myself happy. And it's trying to figure out that balancing act of, this is what I like, but this is what the judges want to see. So having to sort of play the game and start to develop a border or a finishing treatment that is what the judges want to see on an image. That's probably where I'm at with that. And then the highlights so far with both the PPOC and the IEPPV that I've been entering in competitions for the last year or so, scoring some reasonable scores. I think I've had a couple of best in shows and things like that. So that's been encouraging. Means to me that I'm sort of developing as a photographer. Hopefully I'm improving and able to take the feedback at times and sort of adjust an image where people are pointing out either flaws or things that could be improved upon, not just being done with it, but actually revisiting it, addressing a few things, and then hopefully using it again or having just a polished image.
And didn't you win Photographer of the Year in Inland Empire?
I think I got landscape.
Sorry, landscape
overall. So not
but you won Photographer of the Year for landscape. That's not bad for somebody from Australia.
Well,
yeah,
I'd like to think I'm improving.
Yes, you are.
It's not bad for anybody.
It's fantastic.
So when it comes to the presentation part of that, I'm curious because aside from, there's the difference between what we do in the real world, and I say the real world, which is what we do for our clients, right? In competition, we're going for scoring to get merits to win titles, but in the real world, we're looking to get green merits. We're looking to sell our images. They most often do not line up, right?
But I'm starting to realize.
Yeah, they really don't. And I think for a new photographer, that is one of the most confusing things or frustrating things really, is that well, this is a great image. It sells really well. My clients love this style, right? I shoot this all the time, and yet I'm getting really, really bad scores in competition. Um, Michael, what in your mind, what is really the core differences between competition images and real world images? And we're gonna show some images later. We're gonna talk about them, so some of these things will be highlighted even more. So what are your thoughts on that stuff, Michael?
Yeah, no, thank you. As far as the competition images, and to your point, yeah, there are often, the images that, let's just say on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and so forth, that, you get the most likes on, and you think, okay, well, automatically that translates over into something that should do well in competition. And you put that out in one of the, either the local competitions or one of the PPA affiliate competitions, and you get judges that are judging based upon, like, as you mentioned earlier, the 12 elements. And there could be 3 or 4 of those things that really hit, but the ones, I guess the most important ones there, I would say, are storytelling, impact, I guess, is the biggest one. And while the ones that, might be, I'll say, not hit the mark for the judges in the, Professional Photographers of America organizations and so forth, there's that big difference. So what is it that makes the image different? Sorry about that. Let me, I'll pause. We'll edit this piece right here. Let me think about where I can go with that.
That's okay. No, I mean, this is
at
one
least
of
we
those
can't
kind of
edit.
things. So an image that you're going to create for your client,
right,
versus an image that you're going to enter in competition isn't always going to have an amazing impact, right? An emotional impact.
Right.
It may have an emotional impact for the couple, for the family. We'll just say for like the family portraits, right? It may have an emotional impact for them, but the judges don't know who these people are. So that's so Peter,
yes,
a lot of your work is around the world, right? You travel to like a lot of remote places, and you get to see a lot of really remote ideas. So how do you translate, like when you're standing somewhere and you're in a temple, and you can smell the incense or the candles and the dust, and you've got to somehow photograph that and translate that in a way that a judge is going to appreciate what you've given. How do you do that?
Yeah. You know what? That's a really good question. And thinking about image competition doesn't even enter my brain or my technique or my shooting when I'm out shooting at any time. I shoot because it's a little bit different for me. What I sell to people that want to buy my artwork. I don't contract with, like what you do, Troy, with wedding and with Craig, and have clients. I don't do that kind of photography. I shoot what I like, and then I present what I like. And if people like it, they buy it. Sometimes they don't. And I think, why not? That's a fantastic photo, great image. But my situation is a little different. But what I can say 100% that ever since entering image competition, the photography or artwork that I sell as fine art has improved 100%, maybe more, because I can tell that where I was getting, $1,500, $2,000 maximum, I'm now getting $6,000 to $8,000 for artwork that people really want to buy because I'm at the next level. So I'm in a better position because I'm shooting for what I want. And if people like what people like what I produce, then they buy it. So it's a little different. But I try not to think about image competition. I just think about using the skills that I have to be just a better photographer and create better images, which will translate to better quality image comp.
Perfect. That you actually answered my next question.
Sorry.
No, it's perfect, because the challenge is if there's this disconnect, right? If there's this chasm between the two, why do we enter competition? And Craig, I'm going to get to you last on this question. Peter, you answered it already for you, which is
Let me just finish that very quickly. I've seen a photographer, Lyle, who takes magnificent automobile photography. It is outstanding. It's the best ever. I love cars, and so does Craig. And in image competitions, he would do low 80s all the time. And some other picture that was just randomly different because I haven't seen it before, you got 90s. So he didn't do that anymore because he doesn't need to be validated by image competition, but it did improve his quality of photography. But again, it depends, if you want to, make money or do it for yourself or improve. Go ahead, Craig.
Right,
Sorry.
right. So Michael, you were very much in the same category as Peter, and I think it's interesting how we're divided in the grid. I don't know if it's the same for you, but I got Michael and Peter over here, and Craig and I are over here, and you guys are out. You guys are the purists. You're out shooting for yourself, and you're just in it for the art. And then a little bit, Craig and I are like, I would really like to be able to pay my electric bill by selling some of these. So I want to talk. I want to go into some of the business aspects of why we do this after we answer this question of why we enter. So Michael, for you, why are you entering? Why are you putting yourself through this agony?
Yeah, no, the agony. No, I enjoy it, and to that point, right? The first few times that I entered, I was I don't want to use the word terrified, but curious as to what the judges, how they would respond, and even now 5-6 years later, I still am. But I enjoy it from the standpoint of I do enjoy the feedback that the judges provide, and my answer is a little bit different than Peter's in that I do go out and shoot for myself and shoot for what I like in terms of content and landscapes and wildlife and so forth. But I do pay attention to some of the points that were raised by the judges, and images that scored well, and when they had positive comments with regards to whether it was the lighting that I was able to find, the composition I was able to create. I will take those things into the back of my mind, and whenever I'm out in the field next, I will take those things into consideration and try to create images that I believe will score better in competitions, and hopefully that also translates into something that clients or the public also enjoys seeing in that. And I think there is some correlation. While there is going to be, like I say, some differences between what scores well in social media versus scores well in competitions. I think that there is some benefit to taking forward composition and lighting and content and impact. The things that they do judge on there, I think, are important. And why do I do it? And much like Peter said, I think over the course of these last 5 years since I've been doing this, I do feel that my overall photography has benefited quite a bit because I've entered competitions, because I've heard those judge comments on my images, and also as well as in those competitions, luckily you also get to hear the comments on other photographers' images, and I take those into consideration as well. So I kind of a long answer as to why I still enter competitions and will continue to do that.
I think that answering these questions is going to do a number of things. One, I'm hoping it encourages people to realize that Peter and I are veterans. I mean, we've been doing it for a long time. Craig is newer at it, and I think Michael is as well. And so this idea is I'm hoping to encourage new people to realize, like, look, just jump in. It's really not that scary. Two, if you're in it and you're frustrated because you don't like what the judges are saying or whatever, I think you've got to kind of change your mindset. And for me, I started by entering competitions and I got chewed up over things that I thought were stupid. And I'm like, I'm out. And then a couple of years later, I decided, like, okay, I've got to reset my expectations, and I'm going to go in it again to try to learn. And once I did that, I got a lot more out of it. And kind of I think what Michael, what you were saying is like for me now, I'll be out shooting something and I'll see this little twig come into the frame from the corner. And I'll be like, oh, judges are going to hate that. So I might move my angle a tiny bit. It's gone, right? Now my image is improved because I thought about what a judge might say. Sometimes I think, well, I'll just take it out in Photoshop later because I know that it shouldn't be there, but now I'm aware of it. So for me, it was about improving my work. If I improved my work, I sold more weddings because I set myself apart in the wedding industry and the portrait industry. And I was able to create images that, quite frankly, I think all that you have to do is really include your feet in your images. And I think you look like a professional now because, you know, if you keep crop everybody's feet off, you know. So hearing the judges comment about stuff like that really makes me like, ooh, God, I got to keep my feet in my photos, right? Don't focus in the middle. Change your frame and get that nice and clean. So
just a little bit before you go to Craig. Okay, so thinking about what you said, I actually will retract what I said that I don't think about image competition, because subliminally I actually do, because what they say I put into practice. But I'm not going out there to shoot images for competition, but I use what the comments and what they say as a background. And if I can change something or move 5 feet, 3 feet or whatever, and get a better image, then whatever in the past in image comp worked.
Right.
Craig.
Perfect. Yeah, good. I was hoping you'd say that. So Craig, let's come to you. You know what? Why are you doing this? I mean, you and I have had some conversations, and you've clearly been very frustrated. You know,
for sure.
So tell us.
Again, to improve, to get feedback, thinking that the people judging the images, and this is not aimed at anybody in particular, this is a generalization. Sometimes the judges don't know the genre well enough that I'm shooting or understand what my image is saying, which comes back to me because I'm not either titling it correctly or it's not treated correctly. So it's big feedback for me on how to improve overall. I think early on, apart from being stubborn with the borders, I needed to come up with better titles for images, which I sort of struggle with at times. I prefer just taking a photo and letting it do the talking. Now I've got to actually mentally think, how do I title this so that other people understand where it's taken, or the type of subject that I'm shooting, or the type of camera that I might be using. And that sort of, again, it's all part of learning. How do I play this game? Not so much to get a good score, but to actually play the game in terms of they've understood what I'm shooting, understood what I'm saying. This is the image. Is it a good image? That's where I'm at the moment. Yeah. And slowly coming around to obviously changing to what the judges want to see.
So I get this sense that you guys are looking at my notes, because as you're making comments, I'm like, that's the next thing I want to move into.
Yeah. Well, before you move in there, Craig, there is a service available where you can show people your photos and they will give it a magnificent title. And that fee is $5. Send me your photos and I'll give you some good titles.
Understood. Well, I've been very appreciative of your feedback on some of my images, in what to change and what not to. And so maybe titles will be the next one.
Yeah.
So
but it's fun.
You guys, and that's fun. $5 Australian dollars, correct?
Yes, sir.
Aussie dollars?
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
That I can afford.
So two things I want to address for you real quick is, one is judges understanding. I think this is a big frustration for a lot of people, especially people that are shooting, like photojournalism, right? And, they come in, they enter these images and they're like, oh my God, the judges don't understand. Like, I couldn't move. I couldn't, then don't enter the image. I mean, if you want to go see some world-class photojournalist images, I mean, go do some searching. And they're not only well composed, well focused, shallow depth of field, good backgrounds, good composition. They're freaking amazing. Like, you would think they set these things up. Nope. They know how to put themselves in the right place at the right time to capture that. So if you enter an image, we'll just say a concert photo, for example, and there's a mic stand sticking through somebody's head in the background, or, an arm from a drummer that's flying out of somebody's head or whatever. Hey, don't blame photojournalism for that. That's you. You have to be responsible for every button push. So judges are not always going to get it. Peter and I have judged quite a bit. I've judged a lot. And also, give the judges a little bit of a break. because, oh, and Craig's judge, like Craig and Michael have also judged, right? Sorry, I didn't mean to leave you guys out. Like you guys have judged for our local affiliate for IEPPB, and your affiliates as well. And what a lot of people don't understand is when that image comes around, you have a fraction of a second to assess the image, to come up with a comment that is, if you're a good judge, it's a comment that's constructive, but edifying to somebody, and then give that comment in a very short amount of time. So sometimes maybe it's your image, the judge is just brain farted, didn't know what to say, flustered, whatever. Don't take that stuff too seriously, right? Like you gotta just move on. We've all had that happen.
Yeah. And following on with that is, and I've done this over and over, and you've told me not to do it, and I keep doing it, is I get all upset and aggravated and pissed off and just say the judges were hard and they were mean and they didn't know what they're looking at. But at the end of the day, everybody in that competition got the same 3 judges with the same 3 comments on everything else. So that's how it is. Humans are humans, and it's fair. But I'm trying to be a better person than not bitch the judges. It's not easy for me.
No, it's not easy. Absolutely not.
Not easy.
And judging is difficult. You stole the word right out of my mouth there. And it is. And as Craig pointed out, you're going to have some judges that are, specialize in their experiences. And it's particularly over in I'll say the PPA. What I've noticed is it's a little bit more highly focused on, portraits and people and that type of photography versus landscape and wildlife.
Yeah.
And they still try to be fair. You can tell that, they're doing what they can, but if they're not familiar with that type of animal or that type of environment that animal is supposed to be in, the type of lighting that might be at the location that you happen to be at or whatever, you may get some comments in there that are not consistent with what you would expect. But like you were pointing out, they from what I've been able to tell in the competitions I've been in, they're doing their best to try to understand and try to do that in the very short amount of time, as Troy said, to come up with the right comments. And the bottom line is, did they, in that short amount of time, did that impact them? Did they get the emotion? Did they feel what they're supposed to give the proper score? So, I mean,
if you're a portrait photographer or wedding photographer like Troy, and you have no background in surfing or no background in motocross, and some of these images turn up that are just absolutely world class, you don't have the background to say, that it's a 95-point photo. I mean, and everyone has limitations. We're not all perfect.
Of course.
Right. And something else to keep into consideration is oftentimes the judge will have what they want to say in their head, but not everybody can articulate under pressure. Okay. And so try to take that into consideration. And I do know that when you're sitting in the audience and you're watching somebody make a comment about your image and you get frustrated, like, look, I've gone through it all. Okay. If you're at a live competition, at the end of the competition, if you have a chance, don't be afraid to approach that judge and say, hey, Peter, on that image, you said X, Y, Z, and I don't really get it. More often than not, they just will have so much more to be able to tell you. I know that a lot of judges, they judge for free or they're volunteering, and sometimes you can reach out to them and they'll be more than gracious to speak to you, especially at the local level, more than anything else. So,
and at the time you think they're an idiot and they don't know what they're doing, but later on you find out that they actually do know what they're talking about, and the comments are very valuable.
Yeah. So I like to say all judges are idiots while they're judging. I judge plenty of times. I'm an idiot while I'm judging. It's just the way judging goes. So let's move on from that. Titles. We don't really need to talk a ton about titles, but titles are so important. I cannot stress how important those titles are. So for those of you who've never entered a competition, even if you're watching one, keep something in mind. In between images, they read a title, right? And let's say that the title is, dancing ponies. And that image comes around and it's a picture of a bulldog drooling. Your brain is going to go, I have no idea what you're trying to say to me. So if you can include in the title something that will help get the judge to where you need them to be, could not be more important. Also, a tip on your titles, make sure it's words that a third grader can pronounce, because you've got somebody reading your titles, and if they don't know how to pronounce a word, or you're trying to be clever, it's gonna be rough. Now, a good judge can overlook that, but not all judges will, and that emotional impact can be disrupted. So a tip on writing titles. Okay, here you go. Here's the tip. Here's the magic tip. You got a pen? You ready? Everybody ready?
I'm getting.
Pen.
Yeah.
All right, let me get a
All
pen.
I'm writing it down.
Let me get a pen.
Yeah.
Getting a pen. Getting a
You
pen.
don't need a pen. It's super simple. It's super simple. Jazz songs. The title of jazz songs
Jazz songs.
are amazing.
Jazz songs.
You're right. Just go on, go on and look up, top jazz songs of, 1940 and you're like reading like Luscious Purple Heart. You're like, oh my God, that would be great. Like they're just amazing. They're very creative. They're really good.
Even I've been sitting here for half an hour, and that's what we got, jazz songs.
Titles of jazz songs.
Yes, that's the best
Right.
tip of the whole night. And
I've never heard that before, but yeah,
That's a
that's
great
No,
tip.
neither have I.
And
I know
and
you
talking
think it's
about-
ridiculous.
Oh,
and
no,
I
no,
know
no.
that
It's perfect.
I know there's some people shaking
Perfect.
their head
You're
going,
right.
well, that was just lame.
No,
You wait.
that's perfect. And when you talk
wait.
about titles, just very quickly, the most bizarre titles ever was at WPPI, and astrophotographers, deep space astrophotographers, would actually put the coordinates and the names of the coordinates, and they would read out 30, 40 letters of numbers and this and that and on and on. I'm going, well, that should be disqualified, because we don't even know what they're talking about, and it would get 95 because that's where that is. We couldn't verify anything, but that was the most bizarre situation I've ever seen, where the title just went like, really?
Yep. Keep it simple.
Yep.
Don't get too fancy.
Jazz songs.
Do I have any? I might have. I think some of
I've got an
Craig's
example
images.
with a title in a cob last year that it happened to be one of these ones where it was live and I was actually listening in. It lined up with my work schedule. And right at the end, they said you could, any questions from the audience. So I piped up and said, look, one of the titles was actually read out wrong. And it was below a merit. It was 70 something. And I said, you've read the title wrong. It should be this. And so they looked at it and they said, oh, okay, well, let's have a look at it again. And they read out the title, and it actually made more sense in terms of what I was trying to achieve in expressing the image. And it just got it over into a merit.
But see, English is your second language. You need to gear it for American audiences if you're going to be here.
Funnily enough, Mr. Peter, it was an American slang term that I was using because I knew I was dealing with American audience. And yes, English is my second language. My first language I've forgotten many, many years ago.
But it's an important to point out that your titles absolutely do matter. So just to kind of wrap up this chain of thought, image competition is really for well, we didn't really talk about that. So image competition really is for one of three things for most people, right? It's either for ego, it's either for growth in your craft, or it's for your business, or some combination of both, right? So I think find what works for you, what motivates you to enter a competition, whatever those things are. And then what you take away from what the judges say will make a difference later for you. So what I'd like to do now is I want to move into talking a little bit more about, the image, the presentation, sort of the technicality of that. I think we could all agree that competition is beneficial for however you want to take away from it. Don't be too thick-skinned. Give the judges a break, but listen to what they have to say. If an image, a lot of competitions, if the image doesn't merit, you can re-enter it. So just re-enter it. I have an image that didn't merit 2 locals, didn't merit at a state, and went on to nationals and got some of the highest scores. Same exact image. So also stick to your art, right? Like believe in what you're creating. Anything that's too fringy, we're gonna show some of those images of Craig's. I think they're a little fringy for the normal group, but we'll get into that. So I'm going to share my screen, and what I'm going to show you guys, most of you guys are already really familiar with this, but it's the scoring system, and it's the 12 elements. And I don't know how you guys all relate to the 12 elements and how you feel about them. I'm happy to hear your feedback, but one of the things to keep in mind is our scoring system, which you see up here at the top. Okay. So on a PPA affiliate and state and local affiliates, we use this scoring system. And most competitions use a total, a subtotal, a division total, an average, whatever, to pick category winners and year-end winners. Make sure you read the rules, because everybody kind of does it a little bit different. But the real magic one that everybody wants to be is deserving of a merit. Right in here somewhere. That's not going to highlight for me, is it?
There it is.
Yeah, 80 and above. So when you see us talking about scoring and things like that, it's important to realize that we want to be an 80 and above, because those points go into our year-end titles. And not to speak critically of competitions, but a lot of judges have a really hard time using the wide scoring range. They really get stuck in a narrow range. And I think some of that is they're nervous. I think they're afraid to be too critical of an image, and I think they're afraid to be too generous of an image. This is just a problem within the community, right? So understand that the system isn't perfect. Is kind of why I'm pointing that out. So there's our scores. Now, these 12 elements. Now you can find these like on IEPPV. You can find them on our website in the image competition rules. You can also, if you're a member of PPA also has these, and we share them with PPA. If you're a member of PPOC or other affiliates, many of them adopt something similar to this, if not this, pretty much verbatim. And in this document, which I think was actually created by Roger Daines officially, he actually put in the comment that the 12 elements listed below are in accordance to their importance. And I wanted to point that out because I disagree with that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And as a judge, I don't adhere to that. But what I do adhere to is when I look at these elements, what I want to do is I want to be able to see a lot of these taken into consideration. And I want to make sure that the photographer is making an effort to not have a sloppy composition, but good lighting.
Yeah.
Right. That's not a good way to do it. Or technical excellence, right? If I can see cloning tracks in your image, I'm not going to merit it because I think that's sloppy. I think you shouldn't do that. Peter, when you're creating an image, I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off because I think everybody's seen it long enough. When you're creating an image for competition, do you take into consideration the 12 elements at all?
Indirectly, yes. When I said I don't agree with what Rogers did, is that last point where it says storytelling. If you're entering into photojournalism, storytelling is everything. Is absolutely everything. It's content driven. Right. If the content is not there, no matter how good or how bad it is, it'll never merit. It won't go anywhere. But to me, the most important thing that I look for is impact. It has to be impactful. And I try to always have images that either you haven't seen before or a little bit different or something unusual. But then, obviously make sure that technique falls in line and the color and everything else. But impact to me, whether it's black and white or color, is probably the most important thing by far.
Right. And I agree. I actually, for me, an impact is where that title comes in, because so the way they do it is they read the title. I haven't seen the image yet. They read the title, then they flip the image around. That's the impact.
Yeah.
And then what I do is I start looking for mistakes.
Yeah.
Because if I can find mistakes, I don't really need to look any further. Like, oh, but yeah, there's cloning tracks, it's crooked, it's out of focus, it looks like a snapshot. Like, well, we don't need to go, we don't need to go very deep.
Yeah.
If there's
you
no
start
mistakes,
subtracting. Yeah. If it's high impact and technically it's a mess, then you will lose a lot of points. But that's just from experience. The more you enter, the better you get if you pay attention to what's going on. So like Craig and Michael's, they're definitely improving from last year to this year. They're both improved, enormous, because they're learning what the judges are saying.
Yeah. You and I, we don't improve anymore. You know, once you get to your PPA masters, you're done. You just level out forever.
Well, do you think the stress is gone? But the stress is not there. I mean, sorry. Yes, it is still there. And yeah. Ask them what they think.
Michael, go ahead. Tell me
Sure.
your thoughts on the 12 points there.
So yeah, and what I was going to say is right away, I was going to completely agree with Peter and you, Troy, on impact. I believe is the number one, and because that's first of all, as you said, they hear the title, they see the image, and impact, and immediately that's the thing that is they're either emotionally connected to to that image or they're not, and so right away that comes out. What I would say too is, and this is just kind of, I guess, in my thinking or my words or whatever in that, but a lot of these other elements that go into it, things such as subject matters, things such as storytelling, things such as, I'm reading the list here that's beside me, style, lighting, and so forth. I think a lot of those things all flow into impact. I think, the impact is driven by a combination of a lot of those things all there. So, right off the bat, exactly as Peter said, I think impact is very important. And then Troy, as you were saying, I agree also that as once that impact has been made, now take the judges, I should say, will take a closer look at that image. And now it's I think the technical thing really comes into play here is the lighting correct? Are there dust spots? Is the horizon line flat, the way that it should be? Are all the vertical lines correct the way that they should be? Those become the technical side of it that, as I say, impact is extremely important in number one, but any of those other things, if there's many flaws in those, they can wipe out an image that had great impact on the onset, but all of a sudden those other things will pull it down really quickly.
So Michael, would you say, I mean, I look at it and say impact is 50% and technique is the other 50%. So to get an image to be really good and get good marks for, you have to have obviously good impact, but the technique has to be there too. Craig?
I would agree with that. Sorry, go ahead, Troy.
Oh, I was going to ask you some more specifically, Craig, coming into competition and having gone through sort of the gauntlet that you're at, what's your relationship with those 12 elements? Like, do you feel like they're restrictive, or like, how do you relate to those?
Some of them I think are a little bit restrictive, and I think some of them, particularly like the creativity one, that's if you're too creative, if you're trying to tell a different sort of a story that people aren't used to, it doesn't fit in a box, so we don't know how to judge it, so therefore it's seen as wrong. Whereas if it's a portrait shot, for example, they expect like you get these little cutesy kids with a hat on and stuff like that. To me, it's all staged. I don't like that sort of photography. I don't gel with it. It's not something I want to do, where I've manipulated every little part of the child to smile just correctly, adjust the hat just so, and then smooth the skin so it's wrinkle free. Yes, there's good technique. Yes, there's good lighting. The impact itself, I don't like it. But that's just personally me. Other images, even some of the ones that I've done where I've tried something different, which I think was difficult to actually take the photo. For me, it was, at least. It's not seen as good use of creativity or technique or whatever. So it's trying to find the balance of giving the judges what they know with regard to those 12 points, but also developing as an artist, I'll say, developing as a photographer. At times it's a funny balancing act. I still want to do what I think is my style or my what interests me more than what I want to give a judge. And it's occasionally finding an image that I think, oh, actually, maybe I can find a category within this next comp and I'll fit it into there and find that it should have been in this category rather than the one I chose because I didn't read the rules correctly. Who knows?
Right.
It's a huge learning curve, to be perfectly honest. And I think there's a few cultural differences between what's done in the US to what we possibly do here in Australia. I know the rules between certain organizations are different between the US and Australia. They change quite a bit. So it's trying to feed the US machine.
But you're in now. You can't turn back. You can only go forward. All right.
Correct.
So there's no turning back.
And
no,
to be fair,
no, not at all.
And to be fair, there, you do have that cultural difference challenge. Like I understand that, but also, in reality, and I admit this full-heartedly as we're talking about image competition, and I support image competition. There is a bubble, and it's a fairly small bubble. And if you don't think there's a bubble, you're in it deep. Because there is a PPA bubble, and there are some very specific things that you will hear in competitions that you're like, what? The head is turned a little bit, like I didn't. That's not a true profile. That's, what do you mean you can see the white to the eye and the hand? I can't see the edge of the hand. Like, there are some deep traditions, some deep ideologies that I personally am not a huge fan of. However, when you play basketball, you play by basketball rules. When you play soccer, you play by soccer rules. You don't complain, right? Oh, I wish I could throw some rugby in here or some racquetball. Nah. You play the game the way that game is played.
I'll give you an example though. For one of my commercial images that I submitted, I think last year, it was a front shot of a motor vehicle, and knowing that you can see the steering wheel and that it's, in Australia we're the steering wheel's on the right hand side of the car, I actually flipped the image one so that it felt naturally to you guys as judges, because comments within other the Twitter community and stuff like that, you guys always see any image I put of a car where like it's the person's driving or whatever, it feels unnatural because the steering wheel is on the correct side in my images, whereas for you guys, it's wrong.
Until you get a judge that knows his cars, and then he's going to be like,
I removed the badge so you couldn't read that it said Maserati the other way.
Yeah, that
I removed that.
Yeah, that F40 Ferrari never came as left-hand drive. It's only right-hand drive. This guy
would know that. Yeah, he would know that.
Yeah.
So what I want to do now is, because I know that a lot of the challenges for people, once they've sort of like, okay, all right, Troy, all right, guys, like I'm going to enter, like I'm in, and you go through your first competition, and then, oh, that key line is too big, or we get it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go through some images. And these are the first four are going to be Craig's images, and then the last handful is going to be my images. My images are going to show you before and after, so we can kind of see how much work I put into them, and then we'll talk about Craig's a little bit. So
and Troy will be the judge of your photos. All right.
Oh, you can be the judge,
and the three of us will give you comments.
No, we're not going to do that. No,
we should,
because we don't have time for that. All right, so this first image, now the black line was not there when he entered this. This is for the Google algorithm because it'll block our entire video. So anyway,
but sorry, Troy, that as an image in an image comp, I think it would be fantastic, just like that. I love that. I absolutely love that. Yes.
And a good title, title.
Yes,
right?
I'd give that 87. I love it.
Don't censor me. That would be a great title.
Okay, like that. Okay.
Yes.
I think I got, what did I get for that choice? 78?
79.
79. There you go. So Peter, that $5, it's on its way.
We'll
that
start
was,
up an
I
account.
titled it. That was my title, by the way.
That's fine. Oh, well, I'm still sending it to Peter.
Okay.
I'll split it, Troy.
So Craig, you know, before we talk about this image, and I've already shared my thoughts with you on it. So we'll do Michael real quick and then Peter real quick. Let's keep these brief because we do have you know, a dozen to go through. So Craig, tell us what was the challenge with this image in competition, and then let's talk through it real quick.
The comments made by the judge, the white border, and the key line. In my title, I actually said that this was an infrared photo, and for me, the infrared look, particularly with skin, where you can see the veins below, the skin tends to be quite porcelain-like. I think it's just a very, very interesting effect, and so I enjoyed photographing this model and others with an infrared camera. They didn't like that she's just, it's a model, the wave just happened to cover her. She's scrunching her hair, and they mentioned that the black and white treatment did nothing, it's just a black and white image. So to me, even though I mentioned that it's infrared, to make sure that they understood that it's not just black and white, this is an infrared image. So if you're familiar with infrared, look for those effects, you know, what the skin does, you know, the veins and things like that, how smooth things tend to be. And it was just sort of missed. And it's, you know, a 79 was still, you know, that's still a good score, but we want to get over that 80. And obviously they didn't like the white border. So I'm a big fan of white borders, but that's having to change.
So Michael, you know, real quick, what are your thoughts? Like, was that valid, the things that you think that the judges said? And if not, how could, or if so, how could Craig improve this image from your opinion?
Yeah, no, I like the image quite a bit. The and I think I like what Craig is saying is that, because I've run into this also, and that is I love this here shooting for red quite a bit. And I've had comments before that, you know, positive and negative as it relates to judges that understand and see an image in infrared, and others who see it and it looks so much different than what they're used to, that, you know, they score it a little bit lower until they sort of grasp the concept of what infrared is all about. And in this one, I like what the effects of the infrared do. Like you said, you know, you do see a little bit different the way that the skin tones work. What I think you got here really well is an infrared photographing people is to me very challenging. I've only done it a few times, and getting the eyes to show is something that I think you did a fantastic job with here. And if they understood that, you know, what that challenge is in getting the eyes accurate in infrared, I think that would bump the score up just from that standpoint. But I like the texture in the water. I like the fact that there's clouds back there in the sky. And you know, again, I'm not an expert when it comes to you know, borders and key lines. I'm, you know, that's something that I'm learning and something I know I can improve on. To me, I don't mind seeing, you know, the white border out there. I know a lot of times in competitions and that they always say that, you know, your eyes go to the brightest part of the scene, and in this case, I suppose that probably happens to be the border. But to me, that doesn't draw my eyes away from the subject here. So I'm going to give you a higher score than a 79. So that's where I went on.
So Peter, looking at this image, you know, not critiquing the image as a judge, you know, in an image competition, looking at the image from the sense of you want to help Craig do better in the next competition. Okay.
Hey, Craig. So Craig, I would have given it a 79 as well. Okay. But with a reservation that this can go to the mid 80s. And I say that because the black key line that you have going around should be white, and where the white is should be black. Okay. Yeah. And there's not enough separation between her and the sky and the water. So the other thing is, do not put infrared in your title ever. Don't ever put that in. You have the judges guessing. And I would do a luminosity mask or whatever mask around her and make the water really dark where she's in, and then do a vignette from the top, dark, light to the bottom behind her. Make it really dark, but make her stand out as white. And then you would be in the mid 80s with it. Okay. Because to me, looking at it, everything is too flat. I know what you're doing, and I've shot thousands and hundreds of thousands of people pictures. I would get the veins out and just make it nice and smooth. Make sure our eyes are fine, because it's so hard to get the eyeballs right. Just, go in there and fix them, because they're normally dead and black spots. But with just a little bit of treatment with this could be, outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. No question. Yep.
Did you have a question, Craig?
Thank you.
I didn't hear.
No questions. No, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of that I already told Craig. I absolutely agree with all that. I really think, Craig, like, this is one of those kind of images that when it comes to image competition, the judges are not used to seeing infrared. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
And so you have to think, are they going to get it? Is it different enough? Is it unique enough that the infrared is working for me, but not so different that's going to confuse them?
It makes
this is that creativity part.
Yeah, it makes the skin super smooth, and if you're shooting old people, it makes them just magnificent. No wrinkles, no marks. No, what it does for tattoos is outstanding. It is just magnificent.
So
you could make this a real good shot.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on to some other images. Let's try not to talk about the image so much. Let's try to talk about how image competition and judges interpret that image and define how those judges are seeing that image.
Okay.
We know Craig's image is beautiful, and we know infrared is beautiful, but what we're pointing out is it's too creative for most judges. They don't understand why you can see the veins. They don't understand why it has that look. And that's that narrow bubble, right? And so unless the judge likes infrared, you're going to have a hard time with that, right? And the border, Peter was right on the border. So let's talk about this one a little bit. Craig, real briefly, what was this one got a 79 as well, and what was the challenge that the judges had with this image?
Border and keyline again, and then that the bird is sort of lost in the image. They wanted a tighter crop, whereas I just thought I did crop this a little bit, but this was a pleasing crop for me. And again, I quite liked the red tones, and I didn't think it was particularly hard to find a very colorful parrot in the image, whereas one or two of them struggled to find it according to them. So
yeah,
I think you nailed it. You didn't think it was hard to find the parrot in the image.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that this is one of those type of images where if the audience, we'll call it the judges or whoever, if they have to look for your subject, it's probably not going to score very high. Right.
Yeah.
Peter, what are your thoughts? I mean, do you think
what was the title of this?
Snack Time.
Well, that's not bad. I like that. Snack
It's
Time.
a great title.
Yeah, Snack Time's good. Okay, same thing with the border. Make the keyline white, the outside black, and I would zoom in so that all you see is the bird's head and the little back of the part, and that's it. Zoom right in.
I didn't coach him, Craig. I didn't coach Peter at all, by the way.
No.
He's saying the same things I already told you.
No, because I don't give a crap about the leaves. I don't care if it's a extremely rare tree, whatever. I don't care. I want to see the bird's face. I want to see its teeth. I want to see it pecking. I want to see its tongue. I want to see its eyes. And if it's really sharp, I want to see the fur. I want 95%.
Birds don't have fur.
Okay. Oh, feathers.
Feathers.
Feathers. You are correct. Okay. This is an Australian bird. It has fur.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
I want to see 95% of the bird in the frame.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. Michael, how do you feel about that briefly?
Yeah. This one, I guess you guys have already said it, and I think I very much agree with it. Whereas I didn't mind the white border on the one before there. I can see the criticism maybe on this one that the white border border with the black key line doesn't maybe fit. And as far as again, when we talked earlier about impact, and when it first came up, I'll admit it did take me. My eyes didn't go immediately to the subject matter. I was distracted a bit by some of the I'll say the many leaves, the red, I like the fact that you got it in focus, the bird in focus, and you have a soft background back behind the plant. But it took me a little while to get to the bird and what the bird was doing. you know, and this one might be a little bit of a challenge just because there's a big part of that bird is a green that almost looks like those leaves that are right around it.
Mhm.
And that you can't do a whole lot about, right? Just because of where it was positioned. But it to me, in this one here, I think the bird does get sort of lost. So I tend to kind of agree with you know, where the judges scoring is. I think you have the bird in a good position there. It's just there's a lot of distractions all around it.
Mm. Sorry,
So
and
our
very
lesson
quickly
here,
Sorry.
Craig, is that if the judges can't find your subject matter, if they have to look for it, maybe it's not going to score well, right? If it's hard for them to look where you want them to look, you know, you may love it, you may have stood there and it was the most amazing experience ever, but your judges are coming at it from a completely neutral point. And so the lesson that we can learn from this is spoon feed the judges your image, right? Okay. Let's
Sorry,
go to this
Troy,
next.
just one quick thing. What Craig's doing is he's thinking gallery, because in a gallery, I would have prints with white mats on them. And in a gallery setting, this is perfect. But in a online setting and judging online, that doesn't work. Okay. So in a gallery, very rarely do you have black matte, you know, prints like black matte edges, depending on what the picture is. Most is white. So that's easy to fix, Craig.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
And this was from last year, and I've since tried the black and a couple of grey mats.
Right. And so again,
thank you.
it's we're catering to what the competition likes. That's just what we're doing, you know, what to the event like. So now this is another image. Now you called this no traffic and you got an 80. And I'm you know, my opinion is right away is that was an entirely bogus score. I mean, this is something that I would have scored well into probably high 80s. Because I think that you know, the exposure is amazing, the symmetry is amazing. And so for me, I personally, as a judge, I really love images like this. So I'm going to give you a higher score, right? But I also do this kind of work myself, so I can relate to it.
Sure.
The key line is a little too hot, that white line. What I would do is I make that a little bit smaller, so that you're less likely to stand out, because all you want to do is show where the edge of the image is, so the black doesn't bleed into the black. Okay. And the fact that one of the lenses are open, to me, just adds a little bit of a bonus element. So, but if you have a judge who is a baby photographer only, right? And I'm not picking on baby photographers, but if you're a baby photographer or a portrait artist only, or a wedding portrait photographer only, you may not get this. This may not be amazing to you. And so you're going to score it a little bit lower, right? I mean, Peter, would you agree? I mean, that's how a lot of our work, our abstract stuff is looked at.
In fact, I probably wouldn't even put a key line on this. I just have a little thin black border like he has, leave it there. The composition is fantastic. Everything's great. The only thing that I would do is I would do a gradual vignette on the sky. The sky is too flat, and it just needs to be darker to highlight the clouds.
Well, we're not talking about how to make the image better.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about how do we get the judges to interpret the image in a way that best translates what Craig's or anybody enters what their goal is, right? And I don't think that putting a gradient on this is going to do a whole lot for the image, other than the fact for scoring, right? Other than the fact that this is a gorgeous image, it shouldn't have gotten an 80. Why didn't it get higher? Right. So, Michael, looking at this image with that context, right? Like, why don't the judges give this a higher score?
And I'm puzzled on this one too, because you brought up some of the things that, you know, there's symmetry in it, and there's also, I think maybe the word is asymmetry also in it. You have a lot of, you know, nice, you know, lines, you have curves, you have diagonals, you have the lines in the lower right going, you know, one way, and then you've got the other ones to the point. And I like the whatever, I guess the lights that are up there, the way that they're spaced out is real nice, and it has a lot. I like the balance of what's up there. What is it that I'm trying to look at it, and the textures.
Well,
and
let me
so
ask
forth. I'm
you-
trying to figure out what it is that held them back. And
Well, let me just ask you this.
Mhm.
Just real simple. Did it deserve an
Sure.
80? Did it deserve higher or lower?
Yeah, I mean, I would put it into, I wouldn't put it into the high 80s. I would give it another few. And again, this is very subjective. And is there a big difference between 80 and say 84, 85? I don't know that I go much higher than that. And now the question is what's holding me back from something much higher than that? And it might be, I'm trying to think here.
Well, not really. That's
Mhm.
not really where we need to go.
Not
We're
the
not
purpose.
trying to tell Craig how to get a higher score. What we want to know is why do you think that the judges only gave this an 80? Because that's really the challenge when it comes to image competition, right? And what we're
Yeah.
talking about right here is so iconic of what the challenge is with competition is that, you know, we look at an image and the judges would give it an 80.
Yeah.
Did it deserve higher? And if it deserved higher, why? Not because of a simple gradient.
Mhm.
You know, the
Right.
image is solid.
Right.
There's no blown highlights. There's no block shadows. Everything's in focus. Everything's vertical. It's technically perfect. You've got that pattern interrupted with the lens open. What held judges back from going higher?
They think it's too
Yeah.
plain, too boring. I don't know. It's a good question.
Well, and that right there is the perfect answer because sometimes it just doesn't work well for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. It just doesn't.
It's not everybody's cup of tea. I mean, they look
And-
at it and go,
and
so
that's a
what?
good- Yeah, that's a good point. What impacts us, you know, if the impact is, you know, one of the things, the impact of the shapes and all that, others may want to see something in there other than, you know, maybe they want to see a car there. Maybe there's something that would make it, you know, better
So
for a
Troy,
certain.
so if you had a architectural photographer and who knows how hard it is to do stuff like this, it probably would have had a much higher score. But if you've got portrait photographers and landscape photographers, they maybe look at this and go, ho hum.
Right. And that is really kind of
Yeah.
the core essence of why we're looking at these images, is so that when somebody is entering competition, they can understand that not all judgings are on the same plane. Not all judges are going to be equally talented to see the value in that image. And sometimes you just got to walk away. And I think I told Craig, I said, it's a real shame that he got an 80 because he can't re-enter it at our locals now. He would have been better if he would have got a 79, because then he could wait and enter it later and give it a better try or make some changes to it, right, and try to get that score up. So let's look at one. We're going to look at one more image from Craig's, and then we're gonna go to some before and afters. So again, when we're looking at this image, it's really not about telling Craig how to make his image better. This is really about, why do you think that he only got an 80?
Okay.
Okay. So Peter, go ahead.
Yeah.
What do you think kept him from going higher than an 80?
Okay. Can I say black key line?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Whatever. I mean, what do you
Black
think?
key line and making the buildings at Service Paradise in the background, making them a little darker, and maybe cropping those little buildings at the bottom on the left out, and making the separation between the white wave a little bit brighter. But it's an outstanding photo. This is a very hard image to take, extremely.
Should it have been an 80?
No, this
The
should have
way
been
it's
at
given.
least 85, 86, maybe 87.
Okay.
Except for the white key line. If it was black, it would have been 85, 86 at least.
The grey border.
Yeah, grey border, just the black key line, very thin.
Okay.
Very
Thin,
tiny.
thin, yep.
Not black. Sorry, Craig, not black. Grey, like a dark grey, little dark
And,
grey.
okay.
A quarter of the thickness that you have there, but a little bit more separation of the spray. I love the spray, and I mean, it's an outstanding photo. If you did all that stuff, it could even go higher into the 90s. I mean, it's outstanding.
I'm guessing, Craig, that you had a comment about the key line.
I think so. And they also, one of the judges made the comment about cropping off that image on the building on the left-hand side.
The little one.
Just get,
Okay.
yeah, it's just the little one, just to bring it in a little bit more.
Hmm.
The title was Surfer's Paradise, and the guy's looking for a surfer. Where's the surfer? So again, this is, I'm trying to make a joke that, okay, that's, Surfer's Paradise is a big wave, blah, blah, blah. Where's the surfer? And in the image, that's what he wanted to see.
Yeah.
So replace the white key line with a dark gray and thinner, and the gray border. Keep the gray border or go black.
Either way, looks nice.
Okay.
I think it's either way.
And plus, Surfer's Paradise, I know what you're talking about because I used to surf
Correct.
there. Okay.
Correct. Well,
but the people here don't know. People don't know.
That's right.
Okay.
And he was trying to come up with a clever title, and this is where I struggled.
Yeah. Ocean spray. Windy day. Heading. I mean, there's a million things, but I would like to see a little bit more separation with the spray at the top, and give it a little bit more character. And this could go well high 80s. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have other frames that are slightly different.
Yeah.
So I can always edit one of those and learn from that.
Yeah, do it.
But Snapper Rock's looking across the surface, Peter.
Yep. Beautiful.
So Michael, looking at this image, having heard Peter's comments,
right.
What could you say to Craig? Let's imagine we're post competition. He comes away. He's all teary-eyed. They were mean to him. He's sobbing about this image, and he shows it to you on his phone, and he says, "Oh, they gave me an 80." What would you say to him?
So, and some of these are already been said, but I sort of thought the same thing when it first came across to me. And that I like what Peter's talking about, the spray and getting a little bit more separation or getting a little bit more contrast, throughout parts of that wave, and that is the subject. And I will also say those judges probably didn't understand the challenge of getting a shot like this with that background and being out. I'm assuming you're in the water getting this one, and that there's a lot to that. But in terms of where do I think that the judges were maybe being a little bit, why they were maybe being a little bit harsh with it. I think this one is one where that key line, it does, the attention goes more, or it goes too far, not more to, but too far towards that key line, just because it is, again, in this case, it is the brightest part of the scene. I think that needs to be a little bit darker, or different, maybe black, I guess, altogether. And then the other part of it is, on the border that's outside of the key line, it's very close, almost identical to much of that sky. And I wonder if it maybe should have a little bit of contrast to what's going on in the sky. Maybe a little bit of a darker gray, but not so to the point where it blends in with the wave down below. But and again, you kind of already pointed out, maybe if you had some separation over on that left side where it doesn't cut a building in half, but you have the space there. I understand where they were coming from on that.
Sure.
So it kind of a lot of saying what's already been said, I guess, here and that. But, I think the 80 is, in my case, in my mind, a little bit harsh because I do have some understanding as to oceans and waves and trying to get a shot like this with the curve right there where it's at. I would have given it higher just on that, but I can see where it got pulled away just on, I'll say, the presentation side of it.
Yeah. So again, the point here is that not all the judges are going to get your images all the time. It's just not going to happen. I have a wave image that I didn't bring up, but I have a wave image that scored a 94. And only because one of the judges scored it a 99 and the other judges scored it low in the low 80s, and he challenged it and argued them up to get me into a 94. Now, had that judge not been on the panel, I probably would have scored a mid to low 80s, right? Because they didn't understand or appreciate the symmetry and the color and all that kind of stuff. They just saw a curly wave. But this one guy, he was a surf photographer, lived in San Diego, loved the water. He was totally into that image, and he fought for it. And that's something that I kind of wanted to touch on real quick before we go back into sharing some more images. And is that understanding the rules of how the competition works is also kind of important, So when images come up, and if you ever get a chance to judge or just understanding how judging works, it can really help you. And what is a challenge? Peter, do you want to tell us what a challenge is, and then I'll correct anything that you get wrong.
So Craig, a challenge. One of my infrared pictures, somebody saw it. It got 87. Everybody else is at low 80s, 79, because they didn't understand what it was. And the judge, if there's a 10-point difference, it's an automatic. It's an automatic challenge.
Only on the average.
On the average, 10-point difference.
Yeah, from the highest score to the average. So if the average score is an 80, and there's one judge that
At
gave
90.
it a 90, that average score means the other two judges are so low that we have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right? It's an automatic challenge. So how does a challenge work?
So the challenge works is that the judge will then the other two he'll challenge it. The other two judges, first judge that challenges it tells them why it should be higher. And in some cases, it doesn't happen very often. I've seen it where the judge says it needs to be lower. Because there's a lot of problems, mistakes, and dust and everything. So it can go down, which is very depressing. That's happened to me once. But they will challenge it. And if a judge loves it and he convinces the other two judges that they have not seen the image correctly, then they rejudge, revote, and most of the time it goes up, unless it's a judge that is making comments that the other two judges think are completely worthless, and then it stays where it stays.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So that's an automatic challenge, and you have it where there's less than 10 percentage points, and one of the judges says, "Let's challenge that."
Yeah.
Okay.
A judge can challenge it at any time, but if it's 80 and they're going to judge it, and he's voted 82, 83, you're not going to challenge it because it's just going to go a couple of points up.
That's right.
Yeah, it needs to be something significant.
And that's it. That's important too, because understanding, why things should be challenged, so you understand that what they're arguing about, right? So a good judging panel, judges should be fighting for images that they absolutely love. And I bring that up because, again, it really comes down to the reason you have three judges and the fact that so often they don't get it. So you have to learn how to build images so the judges get what you're saying, right? And that's super critical. So Michael, did you have a comment on that before we jump in?
I was gonna, and again, it's not saying anything too different from what you just said, but I think Peter is absolutely correct in terms of when things get challenged and whatever. The other time that there will be a challenge typically is even if it's only a couple points difference, but if there's somebody who scores something, say like 80, 81, and a couple others are in the 78 range, and it pulls it to a 79, it'll get a challenge to see, hey, does this deserve a merit? Is it above a 79 or is it below? And sometimes that one will get a challenge just because somebody's above the merit category and somebody's below the merit category. I've had situations where they've gone the other way, right? It came up and the average came out at 81. Got a challenge because somebody was down at 78 and it pulled it down to a 79. So it fell out of merit category.
I hate that when that happens.
I hate that. Oh yeah.
And
but on the flip side of it, I've had a couple of them where, we've talked infrared a couple of times here. Two of my higher scoring images, one was an infrared photo that one judge had 94 and a couple of the other ones had 82 and 81 challenge. And that 94 person told them, hey, this is infrared. Here's how this is why it looks like that. And that ultimate score was a 91. Another one, infrared, somebody who's a landscape photographer who knew infrared and shoots infrared, who I knew that, brought one, scored 88, and the other two were down at the 82 range, and it brought it up to a 87 when they scored. So typically they go up, but those are the examples that I bring that. And I've seen challenges also go where somebody has come in with a, real high score, like let's say a 97, a couple of others are at 95. They talk it through. That person who said it was a 97 says, this is actually better than what I just scored it. I'm going up to 100. You guys come with me. And I've seen hundreds come out of that with exactly that.
So
kind of
under,
conversation.
you know, that's the dynamics that are going on. The reason I wanted to bring up challenges was these are the kind of thoughts that are going through the judges' heads as the judging is happening, and they don't always vocalize it. They don't always share it. But be aware that if you enter an image and it's got some, you know, it might be a really amazing image, but it's got some clone marks in it, and one judge scores it like a 95, and then it comes to me and I'm like, I'm going to challenge this image down. That's a bad situation to be in as the maker, because one, it's a little embarrassing. Two, it's embarrassing to the other judge. So it's a really uncomfortable thing. I've had it happen to me in competitions where I didn't see something and it got challenged down and you feel like an idiot.
Mhm.
So just understand that there's a lot of complexity in these images, and a lot of times your images aren't fully understood. So what we're going to do now for like the last 15 minutes, we're going to wrap this up really quick, is I want to show you some images, some before and after images. If you guys have some quick comments on these, that's fine. Quick comments. But you know, we're not a judging panel. We're not going to do a big critique of these. So let me share my desktop.
Do we hold up numbers, Troy?
Yeah. They can't see you. They can see my image. So yeah. So they all gave me 100. So the reason I bring up this image is because I know that one, this is the before image. I haven't finished it yet, right? This is the before image. And what it took for me to enter this in competition, I had to think about the judges, and I had to think about what I wanted the image to say. So the final presentation is this. And I flipped it because this way it feels like she's looking backwards in time. Like she's remembering something, like, oh, I've lost my bride, my groom, I don't know where he's at. This makes me think about she's looking to the future. And so flipping it has made a big difference to me. It only scored an 80. It didn't even score that high.
What's that little halo thing on her arm? Is that Mike?
We're not talking about those things.
Oh, you know, I'm sorry.
And so the key line and the presentation here is kind of what we've been talking about, is that gray. It doesn't detract from the image. And I like to do heavy black borders, and your image doesn't have to always be full frame, full format, right? The rules say that they have to be 4,000 pixels wide, no more than 4,000 pixels high, 4,000 pixels longest side. Okay. So I like to use a heavy chin, which is actually a style for gallery mounting, the way that you might mount in the gallery. So these were some of the things I think that were commented on in some of your images, Craig, about the key lines and maybe the matting or the color of the border. You know, the goal is to get that image to kind of pop off of there. Right?
And Troy, I know we're not judging here. Then I'm just bringing this up as a question, just because I haven't seen this in very many of the ones that I've been in, but where you have, you know, equal. I'm talking about the outside border that you have here, is similar on the two sides, but the lower one is thicker than the upper one. If my screen is correct, if I'm looking at that accurately.
Yes, that's correct.
And I like that, but I have not seen that. But this is something now to consider going forward. And I know we're not judging it, but I like the effect of that.
So the reason that you do that is because it gives the sense that the image is in the upper third quadrant, even though she is on thirds horizontally and her head is on almost on thirds vertically, but the image is presented on the screen in a nice rule of thirds format, because I want the judges to appreciate her whole body in that position. So I share this with you because there's more that goes into, oh, it's just a beautiful image, right? And I know some of you that are probably listening to this that have entered competitions, and you're shaking your head and you're like, I don't want to play those kind of politics. I don't want to get into that. But I'm telling you, this is what you do to win competitions. And
so Craig, are you saying, sorry, Troy, you're saying the gray on either side is part of the image?
No, the black, the narrow black.
Oh, the narrow black. Okay.
Yeah, it's all black. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. It looks good.
But if you can play by the rules and you can learn to create images that fit within that context, Peter's learned how to do it fantastically. I mean, he rarely scores below an 85 because he's learned, oh, the judges aren't going to like this.
Fantastic. But I do like your key line. The key line is so subtle. It is fabulous. Look at that. You can hardly tell it's there, but it's there.
Right. And
Nice.
that's there to
Nice.
separate from the
Yep.
black. Now, for those that
Yep.
don't know,
Yeah.
these mats originated from print competitions. When we did a print
Oh.
competition, it
Yep.
used to be an image matted on single weight mat board.
Yep.
Then you would cut a window mat to go
Yep.
over it.
Yep.
Oftentimes, the core of the window mat would have a color, and that
Yep.
would create a separation between the image and the mat. And then some people got fancy and they would lay paper, very, very, very thin line of paper. So it would be image, maybe a tad green, and then, you know, the mat core, which might be a light gray, and then the outside of the mat board would be white or black. When we started going to digital competitions, we carried that over because the presentation really does matter, you know, in these scenarios. Maybe not in retail, but they really do matter. So let's look at this image. I want to show you before and after.
Nice.
Now, when it comes to competition, I really love this image. And because I loved it, because I was there, this was a very spontaneous moment. It was very, very emotional for the two of them. But the background had dead animals and, you know, all this stuff in the background. So I cleaned it up.
Yeah.
Hundreds of hours. I mean, I'm not
at
great at
that.
Photoshop, so this took me an immense amount of time.
Wow.
The presentation again is very similar to what you saw in the previous one.
Outstanding. Look at that. Wow.
It went to PPA, but it didn't go into loan. It got a pretty decent score. But what it didn't do is it didn't translate emotionally what I had perceived in the image. That was my fault. So even though sometimes I think an image is beautiful and everybody else thinks it's beautiful and you tell the story, it's beautiful, the judges look at it, you know, I titled it Grandma's Blessing.
But Troy, because Troy, you were there and you emotionally connected with them. And if a judge looks at it and says, oh, she's going to slap her or something, who knows, whatever, right? That's what it looks like.
Yes.
When you're there, you're emotionally connected. So that's why you go, this should be 100, because the grandma, you know, I mean, it was just such a touching moment. But the before and after is outstanding. Wow. Yeah.
And so,
Oh, go ahead.
and some of it is, that's how much work sometimes it goes into images. If you could see what went into like national prints or WPPI images, you'd be amazed at the level of work that goes into those. I show you that because this, when you start getting into state and national, this is the kind of level of editing you're competing with.
Yeah.
Right.
And not always. I know Peter doesn't do a lot of editing on his images. A lot of his images are pretty close out of camera, right? He's really good at that.
Because Peter's a dork and he doesn't know how to do editing.
You're good at getting them in camera as part of the deal.
Yeah, I'm too old. I need to learn. I'm 25 years too late.
So this image I show you because I want to show you the digital artistry category and the differences and what that can look like. So in this image, I took this is Grist Mill up in, I think it's like Napa Valley. And this is the image as it was finalized.
Wow.
And in the digital artistry category, it's not about, and actually this is the wrong image. There should be little thumbnails across down the side or across the bottom of the elements that I used. So for example, you know, there's a chair in here that wasn't in the original image that I used. There were some trees.
Wow.
And the goal is in the digital artistry category is to show how good you can edit an image.
That's right.
They're going to judge you not only on the final image, because the final image matters, but also the skill that you use to assemble that image.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're going to work on an image where, you know, you're going to be doing a lot of editing on it, you're going to do a lot of compositing on it, you know, maybe digital artistry is a good place to go. And they should speak to that. I got one more image I'll show you.
Wow, you're pretty good for a wedding photographer.
I used to be. Yeah.
Pretty good or a wedding photographer?
Yeah.
Look at that.
This is out of camera. And right away, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's look at this image, and without going crazy critique on it, right? Because we just don't have that kind of time. I want to wrap up right after this. What do you think? And we'll start with Craig. Let's actually start with Craig. What do you think that the judges are not going to like about this? What are they going to be critical about?
If they looked at this image as it is, they'd probably not like the distraction in the lower left-hand corner, and possibly the distraction through the glass in the door. Probably that she's wearing sunglasses.
Yeah, they rarely like that, but I do it anyway.
Yeah. That's right. That's the creativity side.
Yep.
That's probably possibly the handprints and stuff like that on the glass windows as well of the door. Little details like that, they're probably going to pick up on and not like it. But that's probably what I would say to begin with. The verticals look pretty vertical. The horizontals, a bit hard to tell. I think the wall is sloping away a little bit, so maybe they don't like the wall not being level at the bottom.
Okay, fair. That's all fair. Michael, what do you think? What do you think that the judges are going to be harsh on that's different than what Craig said? Anything
What's
new?
different? What's different? Yeah, because he said, let's see, a lot of them are the same ones. The bottom horizon line looks a little bit crooked, but then I look at the top and it's straight. So I don't know. I think there's probably a way we can figure that and make that work. He already said the bottom corner. Over on, he talked about the windows and maybe being a little bit distraction over on the right. And what I see in there are some of the, I don't know if it's glare or smudge marks or dots or spots. There we go. Let's see. And sunglasses, I think I don't mind that, but there's a little bit of that hot spot that's right there on her right side, our left side on that one sunglass.
Okay, well that's fair. I mean, there's a lot going on here. Peter, do you have any additions to that? And then I'll show you the final image. And
no, not really. I mean, it's been said. It's just a cropping issue. The legs wrong. Just crop where a hand is over to the right, where the little cross is up, and just crop that part and just turn it into black and white and change it a little bit.
Isn't this great? Everybody has a different opinion.
Yeah.
So this is what I ended up with.
Oh, that's nothing like what I thought it was going to be.
I know. The one thing you guys nobody said was the two missing candles up on the candle.
I didn't have a problem with that.
No, but it looks nice.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with the two missing candles.
Yeah, but a judge is going to pick up on that.
Oh.
We're talking if you want to get the highest possible score,
you
have got to give the judges absolutely no reason to pick.
Did you put the candles in? Let's have a look.
Well, yeah, of course I put the candles in.
Oh, there they are. All right. Yeah.
For me, that's a little bit of tension. That's just a little bit of something a little bit quirky, a little bit.
I don't know if I like the green.
Not 100% perfect,
but everything else is good.
I like the darkening up. There were some of those sections that were a little bit hot, a little bit bright, like the wood. You took the windows off altogether on the right, but the wood up there with a cross on it. Initially, that is a pretty bright spot within the scene. You brought the light right to the subject. The way
and I like your borderline. I like your key line and your border treatment on that. That's very good. I'd like to see this, Troy, in black and white. I mean, have you ever done black and white?
No, we're not going there.
You should try that. You should try that.
So what's really important here is that when you create a really good image, when you want to create an image that you want the judges to give you the highest possible score, you have to remove absolutely any and all distractions within that image. And I mean everything. I look at this image today and I don't like the fact that there's little hinges left on the right. On that piece of wood. I should have taken those out, but I didn't have the Photoshop skill to fill the grain back in. Right. So I left them in there.
I like that they're pointing towards her though.
Yeah, I mean, this I think this scored like an 85, so it did really well. But on a wedding day, this is what I had to work with, right? So I have to look at this image and think, it's really hot on the right-hand side. You're not really able to see the bride. The dress is a little blown out. Even right down to, if you look at the jar behind her. See the bird droppings and the specks and how dirty the jar looks?
Yeah.
And look what it looks like in here.
Nice.
Now, I'm absolutely convinced, and this could just be my opinion, but I've seen it happen a lot, that you may not think that matters. It absolutely does. I know that Peter and I and many others have had judges that can't find something that they don't like, and they'll look at that and they'll be like, oh God, that jar is so dirty, that's gross, or I don't like that, or there's specks on the wall, or why didn't you fix that? Or even the crooked chandelier. I had a judge comment that he didn't like the fact that the chandelier was crooked. But I wasn't going to fix that.
Right.
So,
but Troy, did the bride love this? I would have thought the bride would make this a 60-inch print and put it on a wall. Looks fabulous.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Absolutely.
It looks gorgeous. Gorgeous.
Absolutely. I show those because if you want to win, if you're going to compete against individuals in a competition, if you're going to compete against me, if you're going to compete against Peter, you've got to think, well, what are they doing? Why are they scoring high? Why are they winning? And if you're not going for the points, if you're not going for you want to go for your masters, right? If you want to get your masters and you want to go loan, I can promise you at PPA, they're going to tear that thing up. They're going to see a thread that comes out of the side of the dress. They're going to be like, geez, I really wish you'd taken that thread out.
Yep. We've been there, done that. Misery. Horrible.
Okay.
So we're at we're really pushing a late program for us because we have other stuff that we're going to do after this. So in less than 5 seconds, right? Like I want you guys, just if you can, we'll start with Michael, then Peter, then Craig. Just give me a little last minute thought on where we are with this. Like, what would you say to somebody that is having doubts or frustrations about entering competition? Michael, go ahead.
Yeah. And part of it, I understand because I was there 5-6 years ago in that too. You get past that fear, get past, the ego side of it, understand that you're going to hear some things that you're not going to agree with, but take those in, I'll say, take them in stride, or take the best part of those comments first. I highly encourage you to enter competitions to begin with, and take what the judges say about your images, listen to what they say about other people's images, and think about those things next time you're either out in the field shooting, whether it's portraits, whether it's landscapes, and whether it's editing, whether they make suggestions on cropping, compositions, and so forth. Again, it's a learning process. You're not going to get it overnight. You're going to have to enter a few of these competitions before you start to, really feel the benefits of what you're learning through those. But you will become a much better photographer by entering competitions and by listening to the critiques and listening to the comments. And that's bottom line. I don't know anybody who I know who's been doing this for years who would say that they have not had extremely high benefits from entering competitions.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Michael. And thank you for spending your time with us here and doing this for a second time. This is part 2. We did the live one and then this one. So it's a lot of time.
Thank you for your time in doing these. I think it's a great idea. This is very valuable to me also.
You're very welcome.
Okay, so
Peter,
my 2 cents is this. Make a commitment, pay the money, join, enter image competition, do it for a year, and then follow all the things that we've been telling you. And I would guarantee you, absolutely guarantee you, you would be a much better photographer at the end of 1 year. And you stick with it and go to PPC or PPA or whatever. By the time you get there, you'll be a phenomenal photographer because you will learn as you go and enjoy yourself. And it gets better and it gets easier and you have more fun. You still hate the judges. That's a given. But I will guarantee you, fully money back guarantee, that you will be a better photographer. No question.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Craig, why don't you wrap us up on that?
All right. So my 2 cents worth would be find a mentor or two that you can rely on, that they will give you feedback and be brutally honest rather than relying on other sources that are happy to, obviously placate you. I think it's important to seek advice from those who are more experienced and let them judge your image for you or critique your image for you, to point out what you've done wrong, where you can improve, what you've missed, so that you can improve as a photographer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that is not social media.
No.
And that is often not your family.
Absolutely.
Because they
Definitely
love you
not your
anyway.
family.
Yeah.
Correct.
Not your family.
Yeah.
Fine. Yes, that's great advice. So again, thank you for you guys for laying down the time to do this. This is a topic that we could do this every week, and there would be so much more for us to drag out.
We're doing this next week?
No,
Oh,
I think what we
thanks.
should do, Craig, I think we should put it in the calendar to do this in 1 year from now.
Yes.
And we should do what Peter says. We should say, okay, Craig,
Let's have a
where are
look.
you at?
Yep.
What have you
Show
done?
us your jump.
That would be
Show us your
Show
road.
us what you've done.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I
Perfect.
agree.
Happy to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it'll
I
be great.
absolutely agree.
We'll do a follow-up. Perfect. All right.
All right, that's a wrap, guys. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you.